Welcome back, everybody, to the Deep Dive. This time, we're going to be looking at a festival that I'm sure many of you are already familiar with, but we're going to be looking at it in a way that you may not have thought about before. We're going to be deep diving into the Holi festival.
Holi.
Yeah. Specifically, we're looking at an article titled Holi Festival 2025. Know the real joy of Ramrang Hori, revealed by the Almighty.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So this article is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It's got a very specific perspective. But it does offer some historical and spiritual insights into the Holi festival that I think are worth exploring.
Yeah, I think looking at Holi from a different lens, I think, is something that's going to be really, really fun and interesting today.
Absolutely. So just to give everyone a little bit of background, Holi this year falls on March 14th, with Holika Dahan happening the night before on March 13th. Now it's a Hindu festival celebrated all across India, and it really cuts across caste and creed. It's really a celebration that brings people together.
Yeah, it's a very joyous festival.
It's a riot of colors. Everyone's having fun. But this article suggests that there's a lot more to it than just the outward celebration.
Absolutely. There are a lot of deeper meanings behind it and a lot of historical context that really kind of shape what the festival is all about.
So let's take it back to the roots. What's the story behind Holi, team?
Okay, so the word holy itself is actually derived from Holika, who is the sister of this demon king named Hiranyakashipu.
Okay, a demon king. All right, so we're already starting off with some interesting characters here.
Right, and this king, according to legend, he was granted a boon that made him believe he was immortal.
Oh, so he thinks he's invincible.
Yes.
All right, well, that never goes well.
No, it does not.
So what happens?
So because he believes that he's immortal, he demands that everyone worship him as a god.
Oh, geez.
Even his own son, Prahlad.
So a bit of a family drama right off the bat.
Yeah.
A father demanding absolute obedience and a son who's like, I don't think so.
Well, Prahlad was actually a very devout worshiper of Vishnu, and he absolutely refused to bow to his father.
So we have this clash of ideologies right from the beginning.
Yeah, you could say that.
The king demanding worship and the son standing firm in his own faith.
Yes.
So how does this conflict play out?
Well, Hiranyakashipu, enraged by his son's defiance, he tries to get rid of him.
Makes sense.
He tries to kill Prahlad in a bunch of different ways.
Okay.
Through snakes, through poison. He even pushes him off a mountain.
Wow, that's a dedicated father right there.
Very dedicated to the wrong cause.
Yeah. But Prahlad, he's devout. He's got faith on his side. I'm guessing he survives these attempts.
You guessed it. Each attempt on Prahlad's life miraculously fails.
Of course.
Which further solidifies his own faith and makes his dad even more furious.
All right, so the stakes are getting higher.
Yes, they are.
It's getting desperate. What happens next?
So finally, Hiranyakashipu turns to his sister Holika for help.
So this is where she comes into the story.
Yes, this is it.
What does she bring to the table?
So Holika, she possessed this magical blanket.
Okay, a magical blanket.
It was immune to fire.
Oh, so she's fireproof with this blanket.
Yeah, you could say that.
Interesting. So I'm guessing they try to use this to their advantage.
They do. They hatch this plan to trick Prahlad
Oh, no.
into sitting on a pyre with Holika, believing that he'll be burned alive while she's protected.
Okay, so a pretty evil plot.
It is.
But knowing that Holad is ultimately a celebration of good over evil, I'm guessing things don't go quite as planned.
No, they do not.
What happens?
As the pyre is lit, a strong wind suddenly blows.
Okay.
It blows the blanket off of Holika.
Oh, no.
And it covers Prahlad instead.
Wow. A sudden twist.
Yeah, so Holika ends up perishing in the flames while Prahlad is completely unharmed.
It's like a poetic justice moment, right?
Exactly.
The blanket meant to protect evil ends up protecting good.
That's a good way to put it.
So this whole story, this is what the Holika Dahan bonfire ritual is all about, right?
Yes, that's what it commemorates.
It's the destruction of evil represented by Holika
Right.
and the victory of faith represented by Prahlad.
Absolutely.
And that really ties into the core themes of Holi, doesn't it?
It does.
This battle between good and evil and the ultimate triumph of good.
Yes.
But, this article, it also goes a little bit deeper than that.
Like it does.
It suggests that there's also a more personal level to the story, especially when it comes to Prahlad's unwavering faith.
Yes. Prahlad's faith was very deep-rooted.
So it wasn't just something he kind of adopted on a whim?
No, it was something that was instilled in him even as a child.
Oh, interesting. So what are some of the stories from his childhood that kind of demonstrate this?
Okay, so there's this really interesting story about a potter who accidentally left kittens in her kiln.
Ow.
while it was being fired.
Oh, no.
So distraught, but Potter starts praying to Ram, who is another name for Vishnu.
Okay.
And remember, this is despite the king's orders against worshiping anyone but himself.
Right. So even in the face of potential punishment, she's sticking to her beliefs.
Yes, and Prahlad witnesses this act of defiance and this unwavering faith, and it really moves him.
So even as a child, he's seeing these examples of courage and devotion.
Exactly.
And I imagine that had a profound impact on him shaping his own beliefs.
Yes, it did.
So how did this influence his later actions?
Yeah.
His defiance against his father?
So this incident, along with many others, really shaped Prahlad's understanding of faith, but also a king's duty.
Oh, that's an interesting point.
He saw the contrast, right,
Yeah.
between his father's tyranny and what it actually meant to be devoted.
He wasn't just blindly following a belief system. He was really thinking critically about it.
Exactly. He had a deep understanding of the principles behind it.
And that's something that this article really digs into.
It does.
It even uses Prahlad's understanding to challenge some traditional views about Holi.
Oh, wow.
So I'm curious, what does the article have to say about the rituals that we typically associate with Holi?
Well, it brings up the bonfire ritual, the
Yes.
Holika Dahan that we just talked about.
Yeah.
A lot of people believe that the burning purifies the environment, gets rid of bad thoughts.
Right, kind of a symbolic cleansing.
Yeah, but the article actually argues that this belief isn't really supported by scripture.
Oh, wow. So it's kind of challenging a common assumption there.
Yeah, it is.
So what does the article propose as the true path to purification, if not the bonfire?
It cites the Bhagavad Gita,
Okay.
which points to worshiping the supreme god Kabir,
Okay.
and using the mantra Om Tat Sat as the real way to achieve true cleansing.
So the article is suggesting that there's a deeper spiritual meaning behind Holika Dahan that goes beyond the physical act of burning.
Precisely.
And this is where St. Rampal Maharaj comes into the picture.
Yes.
The article presents him as the current Tatdarshi saint, someone who reveals the true mantras for achieving salvation.
Yeah.
Now, for those of us who aren't familiar with this term, Tatdarshi saint, could you break that down a little bit?
Yeah, so a Tatdarshi saint is essentially someone who has attained true spiritual knowledge and can therefore guide others towards liberation.
Okay, so a true spiritual master. All right, so the article is putting forward a very specific spiritual path here.
It is.
But I'm curious, how does this all connect back to the celebration of Holi?
Well, that's where we start to see the contrast between the traditional practices and what the article calls the true Holi.
Oh, okay, and what's the true Holi according to this article?
It's the concept of Ram Rang Hori.
Ram Rang Hori.
Oh, yeah.
So now we're getting into some really specific terminology.
Yeah.
But before we dive into that, I think it's worth noting that Holi isn't a monolithic festival, right?
Right.
It takes on different names and forms depending on the region.
Absolutely.
What are some of the other names for Holis that we might come across?
Okay, so in northern India, it's known as Dulhendi.
Okay.
In Orissa and Bengal, it's Dol Jatra or Dol Purnima.
Mm-hmm.
And in Assam, it's Phagwa.
Wow, so many different names, but the core themes remain consistent, right?
Yes, the underlying story of good conquering evil, the celebration of spring, the idea of renewal, all of that stays the same.
So we have this really vibrant tapestry of traditions all woven together by these common threads.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
But let's get back to this Ram Rang Hori. What exactly is the article's take on this concept?
This is where the article really starts to challenge some of our common assumptions about Holi.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
It presents Ram Rang Hori as the true Holi,
Okay,
based on the teachings of the 17th century Saint Garib Das Ji.
interesting. And what did this saint have to say about Holi?
Well, he believed that true Holi wasn't about external colors or rituals,
Okay,
but about an inner transformation
an inner transformation.
that's achieved through spiritual devotion.
So kind of shifting the focus from the outward celebration to something more internal.
Exactly.
So what does this inner transformation look like, according to St. Garib Das Ji?
It's about taking Nam Diksha from a true guru.
Okay, Nam Diksha, what's that?
It's basically receiving initiation from a true spiritual master
Okay.
and immersing oneself in the colors of genuine worship.
So it's about connecting with the essence of Holi on a deeper level. A level that the article argues is often missing in modern Holi celebrations. And this is where I think we start to get into some of the critiques of how Holi is celebrated today.
Right.
The article seems to have a lot to say about how the festival has evolved over time, and not always in positive ways.
Yes, there are some concerns that are raised about modern practices.
So let's dive into that in part 2 of our deep dive. We'll explore how the article views the shift in Holi celebrations and what it proposes as a more authentic way to engage with this ancient festival.
Sounds good.
So we left off talking about Hori and how this article kind of presents it as the true Holi.
Yeah, kind of a different way of looking at the festival.
Right, focusing on inner transformation more than just the external rituals.
Exactly.
But this article, it also doesn't shy away from some of the maybe less savory aspects of how Holi is celebrated today.
Yeah, it definitely raises some concerns about how things have maybe strayed a little bit from the original spirit.
Like I'm thinking about all the stuff we see in the news sometimes about the use of like toxic chemicals in the colors.
Right.
The huge parties, the potential for harassment, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, unfortunately, those are valid concerns that have become more and more prevalent.
It seems like there's this tension between the traditional values of Holi and the way it's sometimes celebrated today.
Yeah, and this article is really pushing for a return to a more conscious and responsible way of celebrating.
And one that aligns with this idea of Hori.
Exactly.
But wouldn't you say that some people might view this as like a really strict interpretation of Holi?
I mean, it's possible.
Because for a lot of people, the fun of Holi is in that exuberance.
Yeah.
The coming together, the throwing of colors.
Absolutely. And the article does acknowledge that Holi is a diverse festival.
Right.
With lots of different interpretations.
So it's not necessarily saying don't celebrate.
No.
It's more like celebrate mindfully.
Yeah. Be aware of the potential harm, even in something that's supposed to be so joyful.
Right. Because even if the intention is good, things can get out of hand.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a really important message.
It is.
So if we step back from the article's specific spiritual perspective for a second,
Okay.
What would you say is the key takeaway here for our listeners?
I think it's about finding that balance between preserving the essence of a tradition and adapting to changing times.
Because Holi's, like so many traditions, it has evolved over centuries.
Yes.
And in that evolution, some things might get lost or distorted.
Exactly.
So it's about being mindful of that.
Yeah, taking a step back and saying, are we really honoring the spirit of this festival?
That's a good point. It's not just about going through the motions.
It's about understanding the meaning behind the actions.
In this article, it draws a really interesting parallel between the outer celebration of Holi's and the inner transformation that it's supposed to represent.
Yes, this idea that Holi is not just about external rituals.
Right.
It's about an ongoing process of self-reflection and spiritual growth.
So even if someone's not following the specific path outlined by the article, that idea of inner transformation is still relevant.
Absolutely.
Because we all have our own personal battles, our own negativity to overcome.
Right.
And Holi, with its themes of renewal and good triumphing over evil, it kind of serves as a reminder of that.
It's like a symbolic opportunity to cleanse ourselves.
Yeah, let go of those burdens and start fresh.
And it's beautiful how it coincides with the arrival of spring.
Right.
Just like nature renews itself after winter, we can use this time for our own personal growth.
It's like this perfect alignment of the outer world and the inner world.
Yeah, it's all connected.
And I think that interconnectedness, that's another key takeaway for our listeners.
Absolutely.
Holi reminds us that we're not just these isolated individuals. We're part of something larger.
Our families, our communities, the natural world.
It's a call to act with compassion and understanding.
Yes.
And responsibility towards each other and towards the planet.
Well said.
So as we move into the final part of our deep dive, we'll leave everyone with this thought. How can you embody the spirit of Holi in your own life? Not just during the festival, but all year round.
That's a good question.
We'll explore that further in part 3, where we'll discuss the broader implications of this celebration.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, so we've talked about the history, the legends, the rituals, even some of the controversies surrounding Holi.
It's a pretty complex festival when you really get into it.
It is. There's a lot to unpack. So I think as we wrap up our deep dive here, I want to kind of zoom out a little bit.
Okay.
Look beyond just the specifics of the festival itself.
Yeah, big picture thinking.
Yeah. What are the big takeaways from all this? What can we learn from Holi that applies to our lives even when it's not Holi?
That's a great question. I think one of the things that really strikes me about Holi is its universal appeal.
Yeah.
Even if you're not familiar with all the Hindu mythology, the themes of good versus evil, renewal, forgiveness, those resonate across cultures.
It's like a common human experience.
Exactly.
Like that story of Prehlad, for example.
Yeah.
Incredibly powerful. This young boy standing up for what he believes in, even when he's facing pressure from his own father.
That's a classic story.
It is. It's like the underdog tale.
Yeah.
But it speaks to something really deep within us, I think.
It's about having the courage to stay true to your convictions.
Right? Even when it's hard.
Even when it's really, really hard.
And I think that's something we can all relate to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether it's on a huge scale, like speaking out against injustice, or just, everyday situations.
Yeah, just trying to do the right thing.
Exactly.
Right.
And then there's this whole idea of Holi as a time for renewal.
Oh, yeah.
Letting go of negativity.
That's something I think everyone can get behind.
We all carry burdens.
Yeah.
Regrets, grudges.
Baggage,
exactly. And Holi gives us this chance to kind of symbolically cleanse ourselves and start fresh.
It's like a collective exhale.
I love that, a collective exhale.
So letting go of all that stuff we've been holding on to.
And making space for something new.
Yeah.
And it's so perfect that it aligns with the arrival of spring.
Oh,
when nature itself is renewing.
It's like a big reset button.
It is. It's this beautiful connection between the outer world and the inner world.
And that interconnectedness is another huge takeaway from Holi.
Yeah.
It reminds us that we're not these isolated beings.
Right. We're part of a web.
Yeah. Families, communities, the planet.
It's all connected.
It really is.
And that's a powerful reminder to act with compassion and understanding and responsibility.
Towards ourselves and each other and the environment.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Holi, I hope these insights will stay with you.
Yeah, whether you celebrate the festival or not, I think there's something to be learned from its message.
Definitely.
Good versus evil, renewal, forgiveness. Those are themes that can inspire us all.
To live more meaningful lives.
Absolutely.
And remember, these themes aren't limited to just one day or one festival.
Right, they're principles we can try to embody every day. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the heart of Holi. I hope you've gained a new appreciation for this vibrant and multifaceted celebration. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.